TF2's economy has been around for a long time for a game economy. Those years have brought great additions as well as some undesired changes. So let's talk about everything I see wrong with the economy right now. To get this out of the way first, let's talk about scamming. It definitely isn't as common to get scammed anymore, but it still does happen. YouTubers like Pyro Joe have been pretty integral in getting out the word on scam techniques and how to avoid getting scammed. But it would be great if Valve had actually had an in-game trading tutorial. Hell, they could outsource it to the community since that's basically already been done. It would just be great to not hear about scams anymore. Now, let's move on to some real topics. To start off with, we have skins. I'm sure basically all of you already know, but skins are extremely hard to trade. And it's for a reason that I would probably be guilty of if I added them to the game. There's too much variety in the skins, not just the pattern themselves, but between the same weapon or pattern. Warpaint's alleviated some of this issue, but that doesn't mean it's gone away. When you first get a skin, you choose a weapon, which immediately decreases its value, but that makes sense. However, the problem lies in the fact that you then have a chance of the skin being strange or not, which boosts value. Then you have the ability to get one unusual form, which boosts value even more. However, that's not new to TF2. Those exist with hats as well. What distinguishes the skins are two things, and the first is wear. There's 5 tiers of wear on a skin, which is far too much for TF2. It makes sense in CSGO, since that's the only form of item in the game essentially, while also not having a set currency item. They just use keys and money. But in TF2, the majority of items are uniform, with skins being the only exception. This leads to skins being extremely hard to value, and therefore extremely hard to trade. The next reason is grading. This is a bit of a divisive topic in the community, and after considering both sides, I'm a bit on both sides of the fence in the way that I think it depends on the topic when talking about if grading is good or not. In terms of crates and cases, I don't like grading. It creates an artificial scarcity for items that may not even be good, then other items that may be great get devalued for being a lower grade. Then it also gives the excuse to add a bunch of garbage items that nobody wants to the lower tiers, rather than most items being unique and appealing in their own way. It was far better when items were added because they were good, then the community decided how much it would cost based off of supply and demand. This applies tenfold when talking about unusuals, because they're already such a low chance to unbox. The artificial scarcity screws with the already low chances and makes it essentially impossible to unbox a high-grade unusual, even if the cosmetic is garbage. Then it creates far too many unusuals of lower-grade cosmetics, making them worth less than they would have been if they were not assigned to grading. I'll be coming back to grading later. Now, let's talk about currency. There's a bit to go over, but it's mostly a retread of what the virtual economist already talked about in his video, so I'll put that in the cards for you to check out. TF2 desperately needs a metal sink, and for what I brought up, it looks like most of you agree with me in the polls. My idea was to have seasonal cosmetics. I don't mean cosmetics that are themed like winter cosmetics. I mean that you can only craft them for a certain time, making the supply limited to how many were crafted in a certain time period. The incentive would be that you can only get them for a limited time before you have to pay someone else for the cosmetics, and at that point, it would have had someone else's name on it. I'd also like a quality for crafted items, or having a quality assigned to items that you've crafted. I know I'm reaching, but I thought it'd be cool. Nevertheless, the best idea I've seen for a metal sink came from the virtual economist, so I'm not taking credit for this one. Essentially, his idea is to have metal integral to the competitive system. That way you buy into tournaments with metal and get rewarded with a myriad of items. This is where I'd be okay with tiered cosmetics. You could have a tiered item that you can upgrade by trading up and supplement the items with metal. That way it incentivizes trading for more pieces or investing your own metal to get the maximum grading as well. As an ending note on this, something that would be great for the economy, or at least the community so we can stop looking for the next buds, is to add keychains to the game. You just combine a set amount of keys, say 10, then that becomes a keychain, and you can unpack the keychain and have the keys separate, but you'd have to have keychains only come in one size, that way there's no scamming potential. It would make high-tier trading far easier, that way you don't have to count out hundreds of keys for an item and count a fraction instead. Now for the nostalgia to come out and talk about bots. I did a whole video on bots, but I'm gonna retread a bit of it here since this is supposed to be more comprehensive. So bots are the cause of a few issues in the economy, and are a catalyst for other issues, making the problem arrive far sooner than it should have. There are 2 forms of bots I'm talking about, idling and trading bots. We'll talk about idlers since Valve even agrees with me here. Idle bots aren't the main issue with Metal right now. The first step is setting a metal sink, but they made the problem worse by introducing a fast source of metal rather than having to wait for drops. Over thousands of bots in thousands of hours makes tons of metal introduced to the economy, increasing the supply and lessening demand of metal. Valve has taken steps to ban thousands of bots just for them to come back shortly after, but with a slight twist that should be able to crush the bots temporarily, would be able to force players to get at least 5 points before they can get a drop. This probably could be circumvented by using the existing Valve AI, but I don't know how they'd be able to pull that off. Then, make drops only available for official servers or certified servers, and they should get vote kicked most of the time unless they're in a group. Now, onto trading bots. The only safe place from them is the unusual market. Besides that, if you want to trade without getting passed up by a bot, I'm sorry. The issue is that people now prefer to trade with bots since they're faster and can operate on lower margins since they'll get more trades in a shorter amount of time. The bots auto bump, and since they're probably selling cheaper than anyone else, you'll probably only see bot buyers and sellers on the front page of any classified listing. It's just not feasible to compete in the regular market since the bots control it all. With that said, bots essentially destroyed bankers/vendors, which were people who would buy and sell one or a select few items back in the day. I actually was one. I would bank the Brotherhood of Arms, and I became known as that guy. I'd buy them for a bit less than average price, then sell them for average if not a bit less than the average price. Since I became known as that guy, people came to me specifically to buy some, and that's how I was able to get into trading with buds and unusuals rather than regular items. I'm definitely nostalgic for that time, so I'll leave my bias there. I don't know how Valve can fix this. I know bots are technically against the terms of service, but I'll leave it up to them. Now, I think that's all the organized topics I have to talk about, but I'd like to mention some miscellaneous things. First of all, add another unusual generation. Holy fuck. It could be to celebrate Valve supporting the competitive scene or anything like that, but something would be great. I would also like to see any key be able to open any crate or case. That'd make it far easier to pick up keys to unbox, as well as to trade keys. Plus, it's only going to take one person to say that we haven't gotten a crate for the Manco supply crate key in years for people to realize it's possible we might not get another, and the key might slowly become obsolete. Speaking of crates, add legacy crates, so you can unbox items that have only shown up once or twice. That way, we don't have to pay an outrageous amount for items such as the Strange Gunslinger. Then, lastly for miscellaneous topics, if Valve would come out and say that duped items won't be deleted, that'd be great. It'd get rid of the stigma around duped items, so those who got scammed don't have an even harder time bouncing back. There's nothing inherently different about a duped item except for the ID and the thought that Valve will delete your items, even though they were the ones who created the dupes. Alright, that's all I have for this section, and this section was based off of the current model for the economy, so I'd like to switch things up a bit. TF2 really needs to change its income model. With the changing of times, loot boxes, or as we know them, crates and cases, are becoming more and more unacceptable, which they are. Countries have gone out of their way to ban loot boxes, such as Belgium, and now those laws are starting to extend to other countries. So, Valve needs to change its income model for Team Fortress 2. Do I expect it to happen? No. Will I propose some changes? Yes. So, as most of you know, the majority of TF2's lifespan was supported by crates and with the Manco store, which no sane person would buy anything from. However, in recent years, the campaign passes, or as the Fortnite kids know them, battle passes, have taken the forefront of the Manco store, offering a fixed amount of contracts for a fixed amount of money. This is obviously more acceptable, and I could see Valve going down this route, but it would require a bit more than the bare minimum to keep going. This is the model I'd like to see the most due to keeping things simple, but it begs a few questions. What about unusuals, strange weapons, and the like? My go-to answer for kill streakers and strange weapons would be man vs. machine, with events on certain tours that drop the weapons and their strangifiers, with events for new weapons happening after they're added to the game. A bunch of people would probably jump on MVM and pick up tickets, and I'm sure Valve wouldn't be opposed to that. You'd probably have to add more parts than the existing ones to improve the crafting system, but that's up to Valve. Speaking of the crafting system, it sucks, and it could be the way out of the loot box model as well. You can easily take a look at games like Warframe and see why they're so successful. It'd probably be a bit of a pain in the ass, but being able to do contracts or hunt for certain parts or even do challenges or dailies for parts would be great. Then you could supplement the monetary factor by letting these people buy items just like in Warframe. I can imagine people getting fed up with having to wait for events for certain parts, so it would encourage trading or buying and selling things on the community market, which Valve takes a cut of. Plus, this way bots wouldn't be able to idle for those parts since they'd actually have to do things rather than nothing in collecting weapons, assuming Valve doesn't do what I said earlier about idling bots. Competitive would also be a great way to pull in money, as shown by the Dota community. But since I don't know what Valve is working on in terms of competitive, and I've already talked about it a bit, I'm just gonna move on. Season passes would be pretty cool though. The last way is just selling cosmetics, which I would want Valve to still do, just at a reasonable price. Like, why are certain cosmetics or weapons $10? Like, are you joking? I can understand charging a nickel for a weapon, even though that's like 10 times the amount they're worth, but it'd still be better than the current model. So this leaves me with one area that needs to be addressed since it's the only viable area of the economy left: unusuals. I have no idea how to distribute them without immediately breaking the economy, because everyone would only work towards them or buy them outright, devaluating them by increasing supply. So if you have ideas on that, please leave a comment. That's all I have for now, and I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching, and have a good night.